If you want to investigate something about online culture, where do you begin? Let's be honest, it's probably Google. But Google severely limits what your investigation can actually turn up, and that is especially the case if you're interested in the internet as an archive of social life. My name is Suzanne van Geuns, and this is Does Not Compute, a toolbox for humanists who want to understand public conversation. I'm here to tell you that we don't have to let a corporate algorithm predetermine what we can discover about the internet's past. In this video, I will show you archival tools for accessing online culture as it was in the era of the flip phone, the early 2000s. So what did the internet look like at this time? And why is Google not a sufficient tool for exploring it? By 2000, most people had a computer and relatively fast internet access. Strictly speaking, the term internet refers to the hardware connections that assemble different kinds of computer networks, military, academic, into one giant internetwork. But colloquially, we use internet to refer to the content on these computer networks. In the 90s, people called this assemblage of content the World Wide Web. Two inventions were crucial to the World Wide Web: the URL and the browser. The URL marked where in the network a resource or a piece of content was, and the browser would then take you to that address directly. No more tricky network navigation. From the mid-1990s onward, users could surf the World Wide Web as an informational domain. This created a problem that Google would solve. Content was spread out on web pages that users could only see if they knew which URL to type into their browsers. But what if you're interested in content but don't already know where in the World Wide Web it can be found? Enter Google. The famous algorithm is a tool for locating resources. It evaluates information and then tells you its address. Useful, but it has significant limitations. Consider this example: Al-Fataha, an organization for queer Muslims that existed from 1997 to 2011. If you Google Al-Fataha, you get the first surah in the Quran. If you Google Al-Fataha queer Muslims, you get the Wikipedia page for the organization and academic articles. Even if you limit the date range of your results, you mainly get news articles explaining what Al-Fataha is, that it started as a mailing list, and so on. You get, in short, information. But what if you wanted to find conversation instead? By design, Google's algorithm treats online content as information that can be ranked from top to bottom. It's simply not built to provide access to a social world. If that is what you want, you'll have to search in a different way. A key tool for investigating the internet of the early 2000s is the Wayback Machine. Since 1996, a nonprofit called the Internet Archive has preserved the web through crawling. This specialized software crawls across a web page, capturing and then saving its contents. Since 2001, it's been possible to access this archive through a tool called the Wayback Machine. Crucially, the Wayback Machine is not a search engine. You can only see a page in the archive if you already have the URL. So if you want to see online conversations in the early 2000s, your main task is to find exact URLs and to find more of them than Google will give you. Of course, you can still begin with Google. When I search for Al-Fataha queer Muslims, one of the results is a page that has a URL I can use, alfataha.org. The site is clearly defunct today, but when I plug alfataha.org in the Wayback Machine, I do get an archive. I can see every crawled version from 1999 to the present. This is far from a complete archive. Any changes during these breaks between crawls have not been saved, and the group might have used a different URL before this one. That would not show up here. Plus, crawling is tricky. The crawls from 2001 all go nowhere, for example. And even in archived versions that look better, there are often problems with depth, where the software only crawled a pop-up ad or a front page, and not the actual content behind it. But we can still see what they had under information in 2003. A theological overview, an introduction to transgender issues, and a list of links. These lists are a great way to snowball more and more relevant URLs to feed into the Wayback Machine. Another way to find URLs and conversations is to think strategically about popular websites. The 2000s saw the rise of the platform, the corporation that helps users put content online. YouTube is a platform for video, for example. By the 2010s, social media corporations were the most used platforms. The 2000s were a transitional time, when friendships, follows, and accounts did not yet determine what content you could see users share online. Take Blogger, a popular 2000s platform for ordinary people's writing. Users could create a unique blog with its own URL for anyone to visit. To signal that Blogger was the platform, however, the URL always ended in blogspot.com. When you search, you can use that to your advantage. Searching specifically for blogs yields this 2001 post, for example. It shares a message that Al-Fataha sent out to the mailing list 2 weeks after 9/11, asking queer Muslims to share their stories of harassment in the wake of the tragedy. Yours in faith, the founder writes, and this blogger wanted to help spread the word. Usenet and other topical forums were also popular, and they are still good places to find URLs or read discussions. Here's a post mentioning Al-Fataha on a Muslim Usenet news group, inviting people to a candlelight vigil in San Francisco. It includes a link for joining the original mailing list, and when we plug this link into the Wayback Machine, we can go back to 2001. We can see a fact sheet, images of a demonstration, and a letter to US Secretary of State Colin Powell. None of these files have been captured by the crawler, but it offers us a glimpse of the group's concerns. On the messages page, some links were crawled and others were not. We can't open a personal invitation, for example, but we can read these wishes for the new year and statements of solidarity. The internet is like any archive, incomplete but full of treasures. The early 2000s are not that long ago, but accessing online conversations from that time requires patience and creativity. It is crucial that we don't let the internet's present, so dominated by Google and social media platforms, overwrite its past or limit the stories we can tell. And now that you know how to begin, you can start digging.